Um, 3D Artist asks, when do I plan to pack FreeMocap as an app to be able to install it? Oh boy. I don't know if you're watching right now or if you're back or how any of that works, but I will answer that question. The answer is no. The answer is as soon as I get a chance to like focus on it. Like we are working on that. Hold on, let me confirm again that we're back online. And back. SquarePeg. Hello, SquarePeg. Ta-da. Okay, now we get to watch the fun network lag loop. Okay. Keep you over here. Even though that's going to drive my mind crazy. I just won't be able to look at it. And then Discord. Oh, wait. I can't have that on because I can hear the sound. I can just mute it. And Discord, I will change the window. So I can't stream that. Let's stream this. Sure. Alrighty. Doop doop doop. Doopity doop. Screen chat. Welcome to the chat room. Only for the moderators. Okay, I guess we're running. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today. Yeah, so just kind of popping in, just trying to get online and just check in and give updates and talk about what we've been working on and what we're going to be working on, and just mostly just trying to like prime the pumps to get back into in service of the forever goal of like streaming on a regular-ish basis to keep people up to date, which, you know, it's an aspirational goal. Sort of, well, it's bundled together with the general idea of like trying to be as open and whatnot as we can about development and trying to like help continue to foster the growth of the burgeoning community of FreeMocap users, while also not burning out and losing my mind. So sort of historically, that's kind of just meant like look at that very bright sunspot in the background. You know, just sort of, I always have these like aspirations of like streaming on a regular basis, like, you know, weekly or whatever. But it's just hard to slot that into the other tasks that I have in my life. Spend a lot of time in front of a camera, and it's just like in front of a webcam specifically. But yeah, but it's I think I know it would really help to be more to like, because basically it's like I'm in the server somewhat. We got folks like Philip who are in there holding it down, and then but I like you know, like I haven't really been in the server much over the past couple of months just because I've been like a little underwater with other parts of my lifestyle as a professor type human. And sometimes it's just kind of like uh, you know, you just gotta like pick your battles. So it's been great sort of seeing the community continue to grow, and people like, you know, Philip and Aaron sort of helping to facilitate the people who are sort of coming in and asking questions. Yeah, Michael Steppig is sort of been also doing a lot of stuff, and I'm trying to think of like I said names, and now I'm like, oh, I should mention everybody. But then when you mention anyone, you're like, oh wait, am I forgetting anybody? It's like, yeah, you are. So uh, the but yeah, it's super awesome watching the server growing and watching people start to use stuff. And people have been using the software recently will remember the little sort of checkbox of like, hey, do you mind if you send us a ping when you use it thing, which is extremely helpful for us to sort of see that like people are actually out there using it. Last I checked, it had been pinged about 3,600 times since March of some about. Um, we just passed. Oh, that's uh oh oh yeah, no wonder. Yeah, we just passed I think 800 and change. This is all yeah, this is all nothing. This is trash. 800 and change individual users, are rather unique IP addresses that we've received pings from, and pings from over 770 countries, which is super cool. So people are out there using it, and now the question is like, you know, continuing to think about like the next steps and next phases and sort of where we're going to go from here, and what is and is like the things that are on the to-do list for development and things like that. And yeah, and the next big milestone is going to be the 1.0 release, which is sort of it's technically already available, but it's behind the version has the tag RC on it, which stands for release candidate, which means it is not like if you just pip install free mocap right now, it gives you like an old version, um, because we're holding the proper release of it until it feels like we're prepared for um, you know the potential of people actually going out and using this thing. So just trying to go in, just trying to make sure that we patch the major holes and you know things like that, because all indications suggest that once we put this thing out there, people are going to start actually using it, and people are already currently using it, and it's behind a couple of like invisible barriers, not actual barriers, but like you know like right now the only way you could really learn about it is either organic search or word of mouth, because like I haven't been posting publicly about it for quite some time, um, uh, and that is on purpose because, well, let's see. Yeah. So in the fact that people like, or in, you're not going to find out about it other than word of mouth or organic search. And then if you find out about it, it's kind of like, we don't have the easy installer that 3D Artist requested. So you have to like run it. You have to like open a terminal and make an environment and clone and pip, either clone it and run it or pip install it. And then even then you also have to like pip install a specific version to see the new stuff. None of which are sort of intentionally put in as barriers, but they are barriers. Like people, like all of those things are such that like fewer people are going to find it. And if people that do find it, there's like a technical hurdle you have to be able to manage to be able to like install it and get it running. Which again is not like an intentional barrier, so much as it is a, oh, do I have like, it's kind of like a strategic deprioritization of of doing the parts of the software development that would bring in larger numbers. Meaning that like deprioritizing posting publicly and like inviting people to come use the software, and not deprioritizing, but like sort of deprioritizing, historically not putting much effort into like what is eventually the goal of having like freemocap.org/download, and you just go there and click the button and download it and it pops up. That kind of thing is something that has always kind of been like roughly within reach. Like I kind of know how to do it. Uh, we've been Philip and I have been working on that, and haven't gotten it like properly working, but I think we will. It's with soon enough. Where by it I mean like doing the part that compiles the Python code into like a just installer package. Um, and I think we'll be able to have that together soon enough. Uh, because and I think we are now roughly at the time to do that kind of thing, because the moment that it becomes installable and usable by people who are, for whatever reason, not going to install it and run it through pip and on a command line, there's going to be a lot more people using it, which means that, well, yeah, there's going to be a lot more people using it, and there's going to be a lot more people coming into the server asking questions. There's going to be a lot more people looking for good documentation and troubleshooting guides and tutorials. And it's something that we want to be ready for, because for a couple of reasons. One, because it's a heavy load to answer a lot of questions in a server. It's not like an unpleasant one, but it can be a lot. And it's in you can make that load easier by making the software more reliable, easier to use, and with sufficient documentation that people can sort of solve problems themselves. And so part of the slow rolling of 1.0 and the slow rolling of the sort of single click installer has been about like trying to make sure that we have have the code and the software to a sufficient place to manage sort of a next phase of growth, as well as making sure that we have kind of like the sort of surrounding infrastructure set up in a way that we can sort of handle more users. And I feel like I'm repeating myself, but that means both like getting better documentation together. We have done some work on the documentation. It's not what I would call like a finished product, but it's doing all right. And then having like figuring out how to like manage the server, because the Discord server will remain like the main spot for interacting with this project. So sorry. I was just kind of rambling on about whatever was going on. So yeah, so we're doing all right. So I guess I can, let's see if what are we doing over here? Oh wait, do I have a VPN running? Let's see what they say in the chat. Jerome, I got into the project about a week ago and I was surprised to see a lot of the most recent papers being included. Not sure I understand that. Oh, I see what you're saying. Nice if there's no values. Jao, what do you mean on Twitch? Is that because I'm probably streaming at that level? Anyways, I'm not sure how to change the level I'm streaming at right now. I'm having enough technical issues as it is. I also don't know, like for some reason I can't move around the stuff in the stream, so the chat is overlapping with the window. And usually I can just click and drag that, but it appears to be locked in some way. And I don't. I tell you. Yeah, Jerome, I'm not sure what you mean by papers being included. We don't really have any papers associated with this at the moment. Like there's plenty of papers that are related, but we're not, we don't have like a write up for it that has citations and stuff. So I'm not quite sure what you mean there, but yeah. But regardless of what that specifically meant, welcome to the project. I'm glad that you found it, and I'm glad that you appear to be into it. Um, Curious what you're doing with it. Mm. 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 Okay. Let's see. Can I move this over here? Window management is always tricky. That seems like a fine enough place. Alrighty. Hmm. So Caleb asked, oh, cool. Yeah. Java appears to have discovered that there is so I'm currently streaming to three places, Twitch, YouTube, um, and sort of like jankily into the free mocap server, uh, which is so I I think that from a technical point of view, the YouTube stream is probably the most reliable. Twitch is always weird and it's got like ads and stuff, which I hate. Um, I do them all because Twitch has the most, you get the most people on it. Like YouTube tends to have fewer folks, and Java 64 appears to have switched from Twitch to YouTube and found better performance, which makes sense. Um, so yeah, Caleb asks, 9 foot by 9 foot studio space. Caleb is American. Haha. Subtle cues. Um, Dedicated to free mocap. Hey, love that. Access to print shop for the Truco board. Best placements for the 4 webcams to be mounted permanently. Great question. Several answers. So 9 foot by 9 foot is not a ton of space, but is probably enough. Let's see, can I? Oh, God. Try to draw a thing. I'll just draw squares. Actually, I can do that. Watch this. So first of all, a couple of just sort of roundabout stuff. Um, uh, yeah. So going to getting a Charuco board printed from a print shop, great plan. We are still using this one, even though like we want to. There's a variety of changes we're going to want to be making to everything, including the calibration process. And one of the things we want to change is making it easier to use different Charuco board definitions. This is the one that we've been using. It does do a good job, but we could also use this version, which it's the same pattern except fewer squares. So on a printout like this, the pattern gets to be much bigger, so you can view it from farther away. Not a like a particularly conceptually difficult switch to make, but it's one would have to work on it. There's also like Mac had this great idea that you could also like invert the colors, and then basically you could get the same printing with less ink, and then when you're doing the tracking, you just invert the colors in the image, and then this looks exactly like that. So yeah, so all that is to say, like, by all means go print a board, but apologies in advance if it's expensive or something that you like that you're holding off on. it might happen that you would print something like this, and then like a couple weeks or whatever later, we're like, oh hey, we now support stuff like this, which you could have printed, uh, more cheaply, less ink, and sort of like bigger squares for the same size of board. But if you're willing to work, if you're willing to accept that sort of cost, then this is the same board that we've been using, and I have printed it on like large boards. A lot of people in my lab have these like big sort of poster size boards, which are good for calibrating large spaces. Um, da-da-da-da. So the other question of optimal camera placement. Real quick, Mr. Square Peg, what version of MediaPipe is being used in FreeMocap? We are currently, we actually just pinned it to 10.1, I think. A MediaPipe 0.10 is a significant shift in the back end of it, and the version we've been using like the holistic route, which it might be getting deprecated at some point, but that's fine because we're also rapidly approaching like what has always been a goal of the tracking software being slot in and outable. Part of the sort of shift to the like poly repo approach to this software. Well, a while ago we switched from a mono repo, which is just big repository with like a bunch of stuff in it, to a poly repo, which is splitting the software up so that like there's FreeMocap core, and then there's like SkellyCam, which handles the cameras, and a bunch of other such things. And one of the ones that's being developed is Skelly Tracker, which is going to handle all of the tracking stuff. So like MediaPipe, the Charuco board, all the parts of the code that involve like trying to detect things in the screen, detect things in the image is going to be sort of moved out of FreeMocap core and into a sub package called Skelly Tracker, which currently exists but sort of in a semi-functional state. So as we are making that shift over to Skelly Tracker, that was going to be a quick answer, but it's going longer. I will get back to your question, Caleb, in a second. But as we move as Skelly Tracker approaches maturity, and we sort of shift the responsibility of like detecting things in images from FreeMocap core to the Skelly Tracker sub package, that will be the time that we sort of start to develop the like the sort of the software agnostic aspects of this plan, where right now it's using MediaPipe, pretty much only MediaPipe, but soon we will sort of have abstracted that tracking stuff out, that you'll be able to select which tracking algorithm you want to use. Say, oh, I want to use MediaPipe, I want to use OpenPose, and then from a technical point of view, I guess it's like FreeMocap by way of SkellyCam will send images to Skelly Tracker. Skelly Tracker will apply whatever tracking algorithms you have selected to those images, pull out the relevant two-dimensional data points, and then send them sort of back to the FreeMocap core. I say back, but it's not really back. It's just sub-packages that are within the same software. And once we've abstracted that well enough, then the sort of specific tracking algorithm becomes somewhat irrelevant, because from a sort of geometric point of view, it's just you're tracking points in an image and then trying to triangulate across them. So asking because their new version with FACS support. I don't know what that is. MediaPipe, FACS. Oh, face. Yeah. Oh, you probably meant the right face. Did you? Oh, there you go. FACS tracker. Oh, is it mesh? Ah. Who is FACS? Facial Action Coding System model. The new face. Ooh, look at this guy. This is Skelly's beefier brother. If Skelly ever went to the gym, it could look like that. Yeah, so long story short, 0.10.1 is the current pinned version. Yeah, he looks so sad. He is flayed. Hmm. Facial muscles are fascinating. So many sphincters. Um, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the part of this where we become tracking algorithm agnostic. It's going to open up a lot of possibilities. The strategy for in order to like facilitate development, we've been doing the thing of like it's like, oh yeah, in the future it's not gonna matter which one you use, but we got to do something. So we've been using MediaPipe and reliant on MediaPipe for quite some time, um, and it's been doing very well for us. But it has never been like the perfect. It has not been like the best optimal solution for all cases. It's the most. It's like it's quick, it's easy to install, easy to use. It can run on any computer. Has a permissive license, doesn't require CUDA. And so we've been using it as the workhorse for like I guess multiple years now. Um, but I'm really excited to be able to sort of slot in other tracking algorithms. Like any of the panoply of trackers out there. The IT pose is nice. Oh, who else? YOLO has a bunch of trackers in it, including like human trackers and object trackers. So many pictures, whatever this is. Uh, Pose, which is a subset of Lab. They have like a bunch of tracking algorithms inherent. Yeah, I think many of these are like better than MediaPipe in terms of performance. But I don't know, and it's just kind of like there's so much other stuff to work on in this project that it just hasn't quite make the things that don't exist before improving the things that do exist is kind of the motto here. So, but as the software has been developed, and a lot of the improvements are on the back end, like the code on the backside is just like much cleaner and more modular and easy to extend and da 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 da. And working on things in that sort of like really sort of pulling the pieces apart so that they are sort of nicely separable and encapsulated and whatnot makes it possible to do things like becoming agnostic to what the actual tracking algorithm is. Um, yeah, Aaron has been working on recently like deep lab cut tracking, which I've used in the past and sort of like manually put it into the pipeline. But building a system where you can like use deep lab cut, train your own tracker to track whatever you want to track, and then just point the software at the model that you trained, and then triangulate the points, and there you go. So these are all the things that we're working on. Um, Camera placement, asks Caleb. It's Caleb? Yeah. Breaks down facial. Riot Comics coming in with the explanation of what FACS stands for. That's cool. I wonder if so. Speaking of FACS, like facts, is that what we call it? Um, like, is the information that it transmits geometric? Um, Single mesh is a landmark. Because if it's breaking down the movement, like I guess it. I'm curious about how like what is actually returned from MediaPipe. Um, because if it's not like tracked in the image and it's just sort of tagged to particular timestamps, then you could just you could just basically like figure out if you could just use the use the timing information to connect that data to the data that we give without having to wait for us to do stuff on the back end. But I don't know enough about this to know. Mr. Squarepeg asks, have we considered putting the binary release of FreeMocap on the Discord? It would have to exist for us to put it there. I keep saying that like, oh, we could do it whenever we want, which is kind of true. But when I say that, I mean that if I like, I am confident that if we I think it's mostly me because Philip has already worked on this, and like we managed to make progress in understanding how to generate the binary version of it. But we have not actually like successfully done that. We tried running it through PyInstaller, and just like there's just like some like weird bugs and like weird error messages and like what feels like a lot of like surmountable problems, but like there's something in there about like it like doesn't find the imports. We gotta like figure out like what's doing what. Um, so uh, if once we have something that is like a easy like single click installer, we probably will make it available in the Discord first. I think that will be sort of like a pattern that we follow going forward about like releases and stuff like that, is like share them on Discord first before going into like the wider world. Um, and just because like you know like thinking about communities, like the Discord server is a sort of a porous closed community. Like anyone can come in, but you have to come in. And so there's sort of like an implicit assumption that the people who chose to come into the server to follow the project, and follow and contribute and like be a part of the project, are going to be more supportive and like more forgiving of like screwiness than like the general population, like versus if I like posted it something like to Twitter or whatever the I mean Twitter becoming a sludge pit is actually not great for these softwares. Like I am using Mastodon and whatnot, but it's not doesn't have the reach. um but uh yeah we always had Reddit. Oh wait, no we don't. Also a sludge pit. Things on the internet rot over time, alas. But yeah, so game dev. I shouldn't be game dev. I'm on Fosstodon. There's free mocap at Fosstodon, which is like free open source stuff. But game dev would be a good one to post to. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the whole federated server thing. It's not like rocket science. It's just like, you have to think about it. But yeah, the game dev one is probably a good one. Okay. Does this work? Sure. All right, so transparent red. That's not a fun color. There you go. And then you will be blue. Okay, Control CV. Yeah. Duplicate. Blue sky. I don't know about blue sky. Yeah, it's just kind of like it's such a problem that we are so reliant on these websites that are being managed by people who do not have the best interests of their users at heart. Like I still lament the like Facebook rotted out a while ago, and we still like as a like collectively as a society like have never found a better way of organizing events, like events and parties and like, hey everyone come over here. Like the Facebook event system was always the best system for that, and we like never got as good of like we never got another ability to do that. So now we just like are like we just as collectively as a culture are just worse at planning events because Facebook decided to just like be garbage. Think about that a lot. Yeah, and something about and Mastodon, like I appreciate what it is, and I think like federated servers is a really good idea, but it does have the issue of being sort of fractious, and like it's a little harder to understand what it is because like the headspace is different. Like it's like, wait, who can see me? Can anyone see me? I don't know. Da da da. Caleb, these triangles are for you. If that wasn't clear. Okay. So here is the geometry. Here's the geometric question that you should be asked. Um, so you have your square room, and you're trying to figure out like optimal camera placement. So consider these to be like this triangle is a camera. Um, and the cone is like a top down view of the room, and this cone represents the field of view of the camera. So to get good coverage, depending on like the focal length of your camera or whatever, like it could it could be more like this if it's a wide angle camera. It could be more like that if it's a telephoto camera. So who really knows? But this is roughly the shape to be thinking about, at least from the top down. Um, and so you're just gonna want to kind of like, if you're permanently fixing them, then you want to be very careful. Um, and before you permanently fix them, find ways of non-permanently fixing them. Um, just so you can try out different configurations and different options, and try to find something that would work for you in this situation. Um, One of the questions for a camera is which rotation it should be at. So let's see. The camera's thing. Yeah, I always have a camera within arm's reach. So like, so if you have, so here's your camera. This one is blinky, so I don't use it anymore. This is like normal camera mode. This is landscape mode images, right? So wide aspect ratio. In When I do a lot of my recording, especially in a constrained space, and 9x9 is going to be a constrained space. Webcams, if you put it in this landscape mode, you're going to have a difficult time. Bring back forums. Yeah. Do we not have forums? Oh yeah, forums, like the actual forums. Yeah. I saw bring back forums. I thought you meant like the Discord forums. I'm like, oh, Discord has forums. They're just like weird and janky. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like that was the great thing about Reddit. It was just like, you know, it was like an auto sorting forum and it was great. And then like they switched to like new Reddit, which looked like a Facebook feed, and it was all downhill from there. Uh, and then yeah, things rot on the internet. Cameras. So if you are yeah, so in a constrained space, if your camera is in landscape mode, you're gonna have a hard time. Yeah, I know I still use old Reddit, but it's just like the fact that I have to do that is it was a sign of the times. Um, but yeah, so with a 9 foot room, camera like this, you could move it all the way to the back wall, and you probably still wouldn't be able to cover your entire body. So what you want to do is to put it like this into portrait mode, because this will be a more efficient use of that small space, because you will be able to just like, humans are portrait mode when you're standing up. So this is a more efficient use of the pixels of your camera, because even if you did have it like this, it'll cover a wide range horizontally, but when it's backed up far enough for you to be fully within the image, you're going to be taking up a relatively small percentage of the picture. Doink. Yep. So like if this is the image from the camera and that's you, you're only using this many pixels in the camera to track your body. And so all these other pixels are basically wasted. Like the information that is coming in from the camera is only giving so many pixels worth of information per frame. And you want to use those as efficiently as you can when you're setting up your cameras. So if you have the cameras instead like this, then this sort of in portrait mode, and then here you're standing here, it's the same number of pixels in both rectangles, but here you're using more of them to track your body. So first thing to consider on the camera front, like camera arrangement, is like uh, portrait mode or landscape mode. Landscape mode, you can cover a larger area, but but it's less efficient for tracking like an upright human. Portrait mode, opposite, better. It's more efficient space wise to cover a person, but then you also get less coverage. Um, trying to see. Um, yeah. I'm trying to find if I have any more of like sort of the cheapo camera mounts I've liked to use. Cheap or sorry, camera mounts. So if you're gonna fix your cameras, if you're gonna put them on the wall, you're gonna need to mount them somehow. Um, Stuff. So like there's a million options out there for mounting cameras. Depending on your webcam, uh, would it make sense to have two cameras in portrait and two in landscape? Um, so it could make sense to do that. Um, let me finish the camera mount conversation, then I'll answer that question. Um, so yeah, so when you're mounting the cameras, if you got a webcam that has the little screw mount on the bottom, pretty much any of these mounts will fit it, like it's a standardized size. Um, but a lot of these are going to be overkill because a lot of these mounts are sort of designed for like proper cameras, and there's no real, you don't need that for this. These are like, it's kind of weird that we like mounting a tiny little webcam to a tripod or a camera or a wall mount. It's just like it's just kind of, I find it really funny. Um, so like these little ones are probably good. The biggest thing you're gonna want is something that has like uh something like this that has like a little like a ball sort of mount on it that you can sort of like configure the camera and sort of like rotate it, and then like you'll be able to switch back and forth between portrait and landscape if you have a mount like that. And then these days I still have some stuff attached to my walls, but these days I tend to mostly just like have tripods and set them up. Um, uh, but speaking of corporate evil things, camera mount. So yeah, you got all these options. You got, these little guys you can clip onto a desk or something like that. Oh, these are nice little clips. These little ball mounts are common. These are the ones I was looking for. So stuff like this you can pick up super cheap, like multi-pack. They are cheap as hell, but they do the job. Um, and oh yeah, and that's a good point. So it the this mounting these cameras for free mocap is sort of, from a physical and technical point of view, very similar to the process of mounting the little lighthouses for like Vive VR systems. It's the same idea because because in both cases you're trying to mount imaging sensors in sort of fixed locations in such a way that they will have an overlapping field of view, because the overlapping field of view will define the capture volume of the thing you're trying to track. If for a VR system, you're tracking a head-mounted display. For this system, we're tracking a person. So technical point of view, you can do whatever these things are. Ring light stand. These days, I often will use like these tripods. They're not particularly great tripods, but they're very small, so it means you can sort of push them back against the wall. They don't take up nearly as much space. Like they're very tall for their footprint, because a lot of like standard tripods They take up a lot of space, and then they're still not very tall. These like ring light ones, because they're, and the reason for that is because tripods are usually expecting to hold something like heavy, like a heavy camera. So they, as they get taller, their base gets larger. But because we're just mounting webcams, we don't really need that much support. So these little ring light tripods can be very tall while keeping a very small footprint. The issue is that they're like, they can be a little wobbly, they're easy to knock over, so we often like put some kind of like weighted sandbag on the on the bottom if we're trying to do stuff reliably there. To ask your question about would it make sense to have two cameras in portrait and two in landscape, for a small space, like a 9-foot space, a principle that I've kind of used, because I've like worked with motion capture for quite some time, and pointed a lot of cameras and configured a lot of capture volumes, which is what you're describing. So you're talking about setting up your capture volume, meaning how should I configure my cameras so that I have the largest usable volume in that room wherein I can reliably track the thing that I want to track, which is myself. And the way that the winning strategy that I have found about like setting up capture volumes is that unless you're trying to track a very large space, which you're not, a good strategy is to try to configure things, like configure each camera in such a way that each camera has the best view of the thing you're trying to track that it can have. So in a room, in a 9-foot by 9-foot room, I don't think you're really going to get much benefit from using landscape mode cameras, because they're not going to be able to track your whole body. And so if you have 4 cameras, which is plenty of cameras for those purposes, a lot of them, yeah. Then you don't want to basically sacrifice 2 of them by putting them in landscape mode. It's better to set up each camera to have the best view that it can of the subject, which is you, from different viewpoints, if that makes any sense. So in a small room, 9-foot by 9-foot room, I think that you're going to have more luck getting a good view of your whole body if you have them all in portrait mode. But again, if you get the right mount, you can swap them back and forth relatively easy. The biggest thing you want to do is just like set them up in, like, before you mount anything, try to set them up in some temporary way, just to get a sense of like what that viewpoint looks like from that perspective. And then in terms of like where to put them and where to point them, you know, in a room that size, I wouldn't recommend sort of putting them like in the corners, because if you put them in the corners, then you're going to have to stand in the middle, and then the distance of you to each camera is going to be short, which again is going to likely mean it's going to mean that you're going to have a harder time fitting your entire body in any particular camera's viewpoint. And Jawa has in fact pointed out the one of the biggest advantages of this project, which is that they are cameras, so that you can just look at them, and like you can trust your intuitions to some extent with this stuff. Like there's a level of like, there's a lot of like weird technical stuff going on under the scenes when you're running things, but when you're setting up cameras, you can use the thought process of like, I'm just trying to get the best images that I can, and then by getting the best images, the tracking algorithms on the other side are going to have better luck, because you're giving them higher quality data. There are specific things to think about here, but that sort of basic principle of like, I am trying to get the best information that I can, trying to get the best, highest quality image from each camera that I can, will go a long way. So I don't think these polygons are pulling their weight. So yeah, yeah. Okay. Actually, I'll just make a new spot. So yeah. So in your so yeah. So I think let's see. Someone else asked a question. Did you ever make a guide for what we should look for in a webcam? Um, yes, indeed. I have that. Yeah, that sloppy. Not that sloppy, but it was. Everything is sloppier than I wish it was. But yeah, still the best. Oh, hey, look, we're live. Um, my videos. Um, all right, got all this stuff. This guy. Yeah. Click, click, click. Why aren't you a link? This is. Come on, y'all. Dashboard. Content. Posts. Videos. This guy. 6,000 people have watched it. That's wild. 99.5 liked it. But who's that 0.5? Yeah, so this video I recorded coming up on a year ago now. Wow. Um, oh, hello, Outback. Thanks for clicking. I talk about it in here about like setting up cameras and like, yeah, camera setup, how to point your cameras at things. I talk about all these things in there too. But this is like one of there's like a gut level aspect of like, how do I set these things up? And like, there's geometric principles and stuff involved, but like, this is like one of those, like, it's a guess and check game, which is one reason why I don't want to say don't permanently mount your cameras, because I understand that there's benefits to doing that. How much do you know about system problems in general? Outback 80. Could you be more specific about that? Like system problems? I'm very familiar with system problems. uh, could you be more specific? Just look at this, man. Like people are still out here using a Kinect, man. Like, and I understand why. It's like still the most reliable, easiest one to use, but like, it's like Microsoft doesn't make those anymore. It's like hardware-based solutions. It's just, you can't trust the people that are making it. Um, uh, I cannot answer that question for you, Outback 80. I recommend plopping it into GPT. Java's right. That is the answer to most technical questions these days. It's like, ask the machine first and then ask the primate, because the first thing the primate's going to do is ask the machine. And I don't know the answer to those questions. Sorry. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Yeah, so you can watch this if you want. It might be helpful, but we can also talk about it. So yeah, I think like when people think about a motion capture studio, they're thinking about something that has this sort of um, like sort of classic, like circle of cameras vibe, um, which then like you're in the middle of the room, uh, which is the great that is the right approach if you have enough space. And space, again, reiterating, is like the distance of you to the camera, which is going to basically define how large you are in the space. How large you are in the image, which is going to correspond to how many pixels of information are being recorded to you, which is going to correlate with the quality of your track. Not on any sort of like deep fundamental level, but on an intuitive level, like you're giving a system that is tracking your body more information about the location of your body if you take up the whole image. And also, like, if this is the portrait image and this is the best you can do in your track, that's fine as long as you don't care about your legs. So So in a smaller space, I guess I can. I mean, I live in Boston, so I have similar constrained spaces. I think in the place that I've done most of my mode capping over there, the distance of me to one of the cameras is probably less than 9 feet. Um, and so what I often try to do, what I generally try to do with smaller spaces, is sort of a more like amphitheater approach. I'm showing three cameras. Um, so like instead of like pointing them at the center of the room, you can point them at a corner, and then you can stand in the corner, and the distance of you to each camera is larger, so you're more likely to be able to like capture your whole body, even in the smaller space. If it's not possible for you to stand in the corner because of like doors and stuff like that, you could always rotate it sort of. Uh, um, so that it's kind of like here, that that and then like this is sort of your capture volume here. Um, totally fine. Sort of like geometrically like not the optimal use of space because you're not using that long diagonal. But again, the configuration of the room matters a lot. Also, if it's a smaller room, try to get as much light in there as you can. If there are windows with the sun shining in, it's better if those windows are behind the cameras. So as opposed to like if there's a window over here, that's fine, but you just got to be mindful that you're not going to like wash out your camera image because you're shining in at something that's too bright. I have also found that like my spot over there does get a lot of natural light, but like sometimes like so right now you can see this patch of sunlight is totally washed out. Like every pixel in this area is fully saturated. Like the pixel value in the red, green, blue channel is 255 across the board. So uh like that can lead to problems. Like if I was standing in that light, I would be fully washed out, both because I don't have melanin and also just because it's so much light. Um, so it's nice when it's bright because then you can turn the exposure to a lower number. But you also like really sharp shadows can be a problem. Like you can get glare on the Charuco board, which can be a problem. So in that spot, I tend to have there's like times of day that are best. Like it's better, uh, like basically like there's a window and like when the sun is directly shining in, it's too bright. But if it's like just like so like in the earlier part of the day or in the later part of the day where it's like not shining directly in is the best time to record over there. So it's just like there's a lot of these kind of like things that one must sort of develop intuitions for. Um, but yeah, so the best advice I can give you, Caleb, about camera placement is try things. Just try a lot of stuff. Try different configurations. Oh, let me do this. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, let me do this. Oh, it didn't work. And then try to have like gut checks for why it's not working. Like if you record a video, and it's not and the quality is bad, look at the annotated video and look at the stick figure that gets drawn on the image, and see if it looks good. Like, does the stick figure actually track the person? And if it's like, oh, cameras 1, 2, and 3 look great, oh, camera 4 is having a bunch of like garbly nonsense, what's wrong with the view of camera 4, and can I move it to a different location? If it's like if you set them all up and you're like, oh, like why aren't my feet tracking well? And it's like, oh, because my feet, when I'm standing in this position, only one or two of the cameras can ever see my feet. So let me try to like step back into another location, so I can be better tracked, or move the cameras in a certain way, or just decide that I don't care about my feet and I'm only going to be tracking from the waist up, and that's the kind of thing I'm doing. And there's a lot of gut checks, a lot of intuitions, and I can tell you as much as I can, which this is the answer to the question. But in the end, it's like if I was in the room, I would give you advice that I won't be able to give you sort of from a generic standpoint. So your best bet is to have the ability to be flexible and move things around. And then once you've found a position, it's like, all right, this is I'm getting good results here. Then you can think about permanently fixing stuff. Um, Again, unless that's like your only option. You can also try to get these like, there's various forms of like sort of like semi-permanent adhesives that you like, you know, little what do they call, like power strips. This is like some Velcro with like some sort of like, you know, like wall mounting on the back. Um, because you might be able to get away with mounting with these because webcams tend to be pretty light, but it depends on your wall and your mount and, you know, a million other things. But these can be nice because they are semi-permanent, and so it's easier to move them. Because like once you start bolting things into the wall, um, you kind of get stuck there. And a lot, I'm not thinking about like the history of this stuff. I started by trying to like, I'm going to mount this here and I'm going to have this in a permanent spot. Um, and I do have some sort of semi-permanent fixtures out there that I still do use. But I guess these days I do a lot more like like putting things in a backpack and going to a spot and recording there. So it's sort of it is all kind of dependent on specifics. So I don't know. Hope that helps. Ugh. Yeah. Oh yeah. Michael Steppig, uh, doing his thing of being very helpful to people who are asking questions, which I super duper appreciate, unbelievably so. Um, yeah, it's also like like try things, get recordings, and then post them into various parts of the server and ask for feedback. Because it's the kind of thing that, like, you know, often it can be really hard to understand why things are or are not working, um, if you're inexperienced. But for people who have more experience, like for me, like if I see your recordings, it's like, oh, you this one should be like that, or this one's like that, or this one's got a bad blah blah blah, and like stuff can be very obvious when it's a video because it's a video. Um, so currently, the best place for that is probably, yeah, free mocap clips. Um, I also have aspirations of doing sort of like office hoursy kind of stuff, which I guess this is kind of serving that role, um, of just like being available to like answer questions like that and give feedback on setups. But yeah, I think in general, like asking the community for help. There's enough people around who have been using things sufficiently that people will be happy to offer help. Um, One second, Mr. Squarepack. Uh, Another thing too, like another thing that's like high on the development list, arguably top of the development list right now, is making something in the code that will spit out a nice, simple video showing like, hey, here's your recording. We had that originally. We had that in the pre-alpha, and we've been without for a while. So we've been in the space for a while where like the current best visual output from free mocap is the Blender scene, um, which is a very great and useful way to view things. The problem is that it is you have to know how to use Blender. It's not super obvious, and it's kind of hard to share. With a video, you can just sort of drag and drop it in the server, and then, hey, here's my recording. How does it look? And we designed the original video to be like both like a nice representation of the recording and also like a debug plot. Like if I'm looking at that, I know a lot about your recording, and it was set up in such a way to like give me that information. Um, and we need to set up another one of those, both because it will make it easier for people to know when they've had a successful recording, easier for people who don't have Blender experience to just have something that they can look at and be like, hey, it's working, and an easier way to assess the quality of people's recording and help us on the dev side like answer questions and whatnot. Because there will be an easy way for someone like, hey, I got a recording. Like, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? And then, drag and drop the MP4 into the server, and then we can give you feedback. So it's on the list. It's high on the list. I hope to have something in that space soon, but we'll see. I also plan we're going to like the server currently has like too many channels, and I don't think they're all pulling their weight. And there's some that are kind of like, it's like, what's the difference between like like there's all this general stuff, but then there's like the free mocap stuff, and it's like it feels like there's a redundancy there. So, um, it's we're gonna like, don't be surprised if you wake up and like the server looks a little different. We're gonna basically try to streamline it and boil it down so that there are um, fewer probably fewer places to post things, which makes it easier to post things, because it's a common thing with Discord servers, especially people who are not familiar with Discord. They come in, they're like, I don't even know. There's like too many things. Like, which one am I supposed to post my answer to? Is this a discussion question, or is it general chit chat? Is it all things mocap, or is it a help request? And so it's like, these are not. We don't need people to be asking. It's easier for people to. It's like, it's a trade-off, right? Because on the one hand, if with more categories, things are smaller, but it's also, it's more surfaces, and it's easier to lose stuff if there's more surfaces. So, um, yeah. Oh, Red Comics. The action units scale off of face size mostly, useful. So useful for transferring. That would be. That's really interesting. Um, there is a side of this, a little side project that like hasn't gotten attention in quite some time. Um, of like attaching, like making face cameras, and then just like, in theory you could just, it's the same webcams that we're using here, they're just mounted on a little face thing. So the thought has been for some time that you could have someone do a regular recording while wearing the face camera, and then you have the very high quality, or rather like, you now have two cameras that are giving you like nothing but face data. So you can triangulate those and theoretically get like a nice high quality face track, and then take that face data and attach it to the full body skeleton data, which can be tracked from external cameras. So I've thought about that for a while, but just, again, it's like, it has never hit the top of the priority list relative to the other things we need to be doing. Um, Focus on the main goal until it's stable, kind of thing. But what you're describing of like, act, action units and scalable things, and like transferring one for the other, like, I think about that. Like, that seems like it might make it easier to like have like hybrid systems that are sort of tracking in different ways, but can still sort of be transferred to one another. Um, yeah, cool. Hoping to get a lot of good stuff going on. Oh, Mr. Squarepeg. System requirements. Buying an old PC, upgrading it with SSD and more RAM. What are the system requirements for free mocap? Also a good question. Mainly concerned about the CPU. So this is, unfortunately, I wish I had a really good answer for this, and I'm afraid that I don't. What I will say is that we have done our best to make the system requirements as low as possible, but I don't have good numbers about like minimum specs. Fortunately or unfortunately, we have, like, most of the people, and like on my side and in the lab, like, we all have nice computers. So like, I don't have a good sense of like minimum specs. So we currently are not utilizing GPU anywhere. We should be, but we're not. We shouldn't be. It would improve things if we were, but like, if we had baked in too much GPU stuff early, we would have locked out anyone that doesn't have an NVIDIA graphics card. So we've been focusing on CPU only solutions. You are going to want, sufficient RAM, because at the moment there's like sort of a a bit of sloppiness in the Skelly camera stuff, where for simplicity's sake, the videos just kind of like are stored in RAM in memory during a recording, and then once the recording is done, that's sort of it's saved to disk, and that's done because saving to disk is like a blocking operation. So if you try to save, so if you're saving a frame to a video, that blocks the camera's ability to like record a frame, um, unless you've properly separated out processes, which we have done and working on, but just like for simplicity's sake, the videos are currently saved in RAM, and then saved to disk when you're done. So the result of what that means is that there's basically like a built-in memory leak, where over the course of recording, not viewing, but over the course of like recording a video, if the size of the videos in memory gets bigger than your memory, the software will crash and you'll unfortunately lose that data. So the ways to get around that is take shorter recordings, and also or have more RAM, and or wait until we fix that particular problem, because it is a fixable problem that is on the list. How much RAM? I don't have a good answer for that either, unfortunately. 8 gigs. I mean, 8 gigs seems low to me, but I don't have a good answer to that. One way to check, and we can actually do this together, but it's a little hard to know because this computer is quite powerful. But if you pull up like Task Manager, look at like performance, and look at like your memory, like I have 128 gigs of memory in this computer, which is like totally unnecessary. It's kind of a long story why I have that much. It's complicated, but that's overkill. Like I can record very, very long recordings on this computer because it won't overflow the RAM. But I don't have a good sense of like how much is necessary to record things. But if you can just like get that computer as it is, run FreeMocap, and then just do like a single camera recording. Just like open up a single camera, push record, and then watch your memory. You'll see it start to creep up in terms of like memory usage. And that might help. So actually on that note, let's go ahead and run this. So yeah, and then the CPU, again, I don't have a good sense of minimum specs there, but one of the things to think about is that so the task of the sensitive part of recording a session is the video recording part, because that's the part where if something crashes, you can't recover it. Like if something screws up at the recording of the videos, there's nothing else you can do. Like the moment that you were trying to record was not recorded, it is lost, alas. Once the videos are recorded, you can process them over and over again all day. I can go back and reprocess videos from 2-3 years ago in the new system because the raw data is the videos. So the question, so I think, I'm not 100% about this, but I think that the CPU requirements to record videos are fairly low. Like I think that any computer that you would reasonably use can probably handle the video recording part. If it's a wimpy CPU, the processing part might take longer, but if you're willing to wait, then it's not an issue. Michael just reported that he runs on a 4-core 3.4 gigahertz CPU with 8 gigs of RAM. 30-second clips from 3 cameras that's a good choice. 7th gen i5, I think you'll be just fine, or higher. Yeah, I think you'll be fine on that. I think Trent was recording on like an i3 or something like that. So he had limitations, but if you can record with 3 cameras, that's all you need. Everything else is going to be gravy. Michael also, yeah, the biggest issue is that he ran out of USB ports, which is an issue. We still are in a place where like it's recommended that you put like one camera port per like one camera per port, um, just because of the running the cameras through a hub means that two camera streams are now going into one USB hub, which can cause pile up. I have sometimes been able, I haven't really tested this in a while, but like I found that if I had like one of those like 4-port USB hubs, if I just put two cameras on it, sometimes it will work, but like it's a little fiddly. So we still recommend like one camera per port. Um, there are ways of improving and changing the way that we interact with cameras. That is like if we use like the turbo JPEG compress or like whatever encoder or some nonsense, that I think that is efficient enough that we could theoretically start running through USB ports. But like that's a technical level that's a bit beyond my understanding, and we'll get there eventually, but I'm not sure when. Um, yeah, and then also issues, yeah, with like you can have issues sometimes with like built-in webcams, and like we used to have issues, we still kind of do, like it like telling it not to detect virtual cameras was a little tricky. Um, there's recently something that's popped up where like if you're streaming on Discord and you open free mocap, it cuts your audio on Discord, which is Discord's favorite thing to do is lose audio. So I don't really know if much of that's our fault, but there's something about the ways that we're detecting our cameras that are leading to that's like making a hiccup in Discord's audio connection. So I don't know about that. Um, oh yeah, so this is the current GUI. I really want to get some kind of dark mode because it's so bright. But we're having issues with dark mode on Mac, just because there's like different ways that the CSS is handled. So this is stable enough for now. Yeah, it's microphones, cameras, man, like all these things. Like I really want to put some kind of audio recorder into FreeMocap too, just because I think it would be it would be it would be very helpful to be able to record audio along like during a recording. It's just it's not like a core requirement, so it's hard to prioritize it. Um, but yeah. Oh, I'm gonna connect to. This is probably gonna cause frame lag. It is gonna cause frame lag on. Wait, is it? We'll see. I currently have 6 webcams attached to my computer. Uh, and 6? 5? Oh, one of them is being used. Um, so yeah, we currently don't recommend using this many cameras, just because of the, like, what's the word? Inefficiencies. Hello. It's also like it's not using space very well. It's just it's so much. There's so much stuff going on. Yeah, so this is 5 cameras and it actually is recording just fine, which is nice. But if I start looking over here, so currently using 41 gigabytes of memory. Oh, because I'm streaming to multiple places. So that makes some sense. Um, uh, Join the Discord button on the front of your mocap. I have thought about that. I've thought of that. Yeah, a lot of like, yeah, it's a good idea. Um, ooh, yeah, yeah. It's a. I typically send people to the website to start, and then the website has a link to join Discord, um, which I guess is that much more visible to bots. But you know, we have these things. We're adding it. It's like it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff. It does look great. Uh, Philip was through here not too long ago and like implemented a bunch of like material design stuff, and it just it's starting to look like a real thing. Um, uh, yeah, it's like uh, infinite piles of work forever. Yeah. So, right. So currently I have this much RAM. And if I start recording, you'll start to see it. Where'd you go? So 42. Yeah, there it is. So you can see it start creeping up. And it looks like so 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000, 7, 1,000, 8, 1,000. 8 seconds per gig is what I just counted. 8 seconds per gig for 5 cameras. So if I shut this down, it's going to take a second. There's just, yeah, so that was roughly 1,000 frames from 5 cameras, and it was 8 seconds per gig of RAM. And I think it's gonna, it's about to, it's going to probably fail at some point because it doesn't have it does not have a calibration for this camera configuration. So oh yeah, and this number here, the Q size, that's a pile up on the backside. Oh, I think I'm getting oh yeah, CPUs. This is an i9 and it's working quite hard. It's actually not a bad test. Yeah. Oh, no. Why are you opening in Photoshop? Oh, it's because I changed the default a while ago. So it is able to record. Um, why are you still counting up? 569. I recently set up the tracking happens in multiprocessing, so the tracking of each, like the media pipe tracking on each camera is now happening in parallel. Um, which is why I don't know if you can see this on the stream, but like this number is sort of just like zipping back and forth between 0, 1, 2, and 3 and 4 because I updated it, but I didn't update the way it updated progress, so they're all competing for the same slot, which actually winds up providing like a reasonable compact estimate of how long you have left to track. Um, but I'm it's still counting up. Not quite sure why. Uh, it's not recording. Yeah. I close the cameras. 58, 57. That's confusing. No, it's still hanging out high. I think it might be related to this happening. So I'm again, like this is too many cameras with it. It's not too many cameras, but it's we're pushing some limits here that are going to be improved. I'm waiting to see. I think when this finishes, this might drop back down to 40 or whatever it was. Yeah. So it was holding a lot of that. I guess it was holding the video in RAM when it was doing some of the camera processing. So oh right, and then I was gonna do. It's about to open up like some cursed Blender scene that's gonna look like exploded nightmares. So detecting the cameras again, and so that was 8 seconds per gig for 5 cameras, or yeah. And so now, if I go back through here, oh, nice. Yeah, Java mentions there's like a way to look at what's going on with your memory more closely, which would be nice. Okay, so I'm going to turn off 3 of these. Still don't love that workflow. Get there. Da, da, da. Is there one more? No? Did I turn off? There's only 2. Why is there only 2? One of them not safe? Okay. Now we're gonna do the same test with 3 cameras. So start recording. Who said? Huh. Control R. That work? New recording. To make life easier, I'm gonna unplug one. Okay. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, hello. Mm-hmm. Hello, hello. Okay, cool. Um, yeah, I think the audio, hello? Why aren't you showing updates? Uh, okay. Well, I guess if you can hear me, that's good. But like on this, the stream thing is not showing that that's getting any input. I guess yeah, it's like something. Well, no, this one I physically unplugged the microphone on accident, so I don't think that's RemoteCap or Discord's fault. Um, Back to virtual memory. So okay, so I don't know how to make this thing show me memory actively, so just gonna go back to this guy. Currently hovering at 54, which is higher than we were hovering at before, but I don't understand computers. Nobody understands computers. They shouldn't work. Um, so now if I start recording, we're seeing. Okay, so now it's 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000, 6 1,000, 7 1,000, 8 1,000, 9 1,000. So it's actually kind of the same number, which doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. Um, but I don't know. 8 seconds per gig. Um, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000, 6 1,000, 7 1,000, 8 1,000. Same number. That doesn't make any sense to me. That should not. It should not. It should double if you have more cameras. Uh, what do I know? Um, what if I unplug all of these cameras except for one? Oops, I unplugged the one I'm using. I need to be. I need to be corralled. Do do do. The world is not set up for multiple cameras, I tell you. What? Something is going very wrong with my stream. I think it's just because I'm tired, though. It's not seeing any of my cameras right now. Um, that's okay. Can they show up here? Because if they show up here, then then I don't. I guess I don't actually need them on. Because I can't change this view, which is it locked? Why can't they change the view? Doesn't make any sense. Um. Hmm. I don't trust you. Oh, usage and process monitor. Cool. Cool. I will do that at a different like date because I'm hitting like my uh I recognize the feeling of running out of steam quite well, and I am running out of steam quite well. Uh, but I didn't want to do that one little test. Um, so to answer your question, your coughed question, Michael, about the Blender output rig. Um, Hello. Here I am. I am dark. Oh, god damn it. What is everything's fucking broken. It's so hard to make things, I tell you guys. Uh yeah, so we haven't been doing much development work on that side of things, as you've probably noticed. Um and unfortunately the reason for that is like another one of those like strategic de-emphasizing or rather strategically prioritizing other things. Um there like I've had other stuff going on. Like I've been teaching a class and working on a secret side project that I will share at some point in the near future. Um, but and also like focusing on like developing like the core software and like fixing these kind of like usability issues and like the cameras connecting wrong and like all sorts of things about the GUI and like just like really focusing on like that side of things. Which unfortunately, because we have such limited available effort to apply, uh, there's only so many hours in the day and there's only so many people who can work on this stuff. So we have not been, I, I, I just haven't had time to like focus on like improving the Blender output. So it's currently in the state of like just like it spits out the raw empties with spheres attached to them into Blender, which is like a way to sort of that's effectively like the raw data. Um, and that's kind of where it's at. So, and we've been focusing on that and focusing on core stuff, and then kind of like the sort of like scientific aspects of it of this process of the software, which is like like Aaron, my grad student, is like working on a validation project and like making sure that it's validate the data is validated relative to our like our like traditional marker-based motion system, which by the way it is. And sort of with the idea that like by focusing on the sort of the core components of the user interface and like improving like the stability of of like the core processes and like improving like the quality of the core output, then we can simultaneously sort of like serve the scientific community of people who are using this thing, and also, oh, did we freeze again? Man, my computer is like really struggling right now. Did we fill up? Nope, didn't fill up. We weren't recording. Something just froze. Oh. Blender? What are you doing? Is it not killing processes? We'll get there. One thing at a time. um, so yeah, so we're working on stuff like this. Oh, hey, we're back. Um, so yeah, I really want to get like it's been a major goal for me for a long time to try to get the like have one of the default outputs of FreeMocap be like a rigged skeleton, maybe like with a mesh attached, that people can use as like that an animator could just use. Like, hey, we have this data, we spat it out, we produce this Blender scene, like there you go. Like this is what you, the animator, wanted to come out the other side of this thing, and you can just use it without having to have a bunch of additional steps and things like that. So if people like you, Michael, who know what they're doing, like you can go in and like like fit it to like, fit the markers to the armature and make it work. And I remain super grateful for like the rig you made and the like the instructional video on how to do it. So I saw that you pointed someone towards that, and like I think that's the right move right now, um, because yeah, ultimately to have something that like automatically puts something together that is like in a format that's usable, um, it's on the list of tasks that we could solve if we had the available effort and the time to focus on it. Um, and it's close. It's near the top, but it's not at the top. Um, so it's just gonna have to wait a little bit until we can focus on that. Um, I really want to get that done soon. It's somewhat overlapping with the other task of like making like a default video output because I've as I've been working on these things, I've been trying to like push down to like the core level of it. So I wound up building like a complex data model recently for sharing the data, which will help every aspect of this sort of work better. But that's the kind of stuff that's like it's kind of invisible development because from the user's perspective, like you won't notice any different. It's just like trust me, it's better. Um, so you know, uh, at the moment, I think the best way to move it forward is just like yeah, like keep doing what you've been doing, which is like helping out, like managing in the server and just like answering questions as they come up. Um, and then also like I think the stuff that like you've been doing. Um, oh, is this anything? Is this new today? Field model complexity is a conflict with protected namespace. Huh. Oh, nice. Pull requests. +4 -1. Love it. Uh, and then here's Philip answering questions. This was all in the past half hour. Love to see that. We should also check out what this is though. Uh, anyways, yeah, so like the stuff that you've been doing, Michael, and the stuff that like this great video, which is this me? Is this supposed to be me? Do I look like that? I love the shirt though. Um, and I also love that I think this is not the first time we've seen data in Unreal, but it's very good. Like the quality looks great. Um, yeah, we're currently like it's not tracking the hands or the feet, but I know that. But yeah, like it looks great. And then I think, and then so like this kind of stuff here, where you know, AJC, whoever you may be, um, uh, it's like he's like, oh yeah, here's the steps I had to take to like get it into a place that I could use it. You know, that like these are that's this is super helpful for me to see. And similarly, Michael, like the video of like, oh yeah, here's the rig I made, here's how I connect it. Like being able to see that information because I am not an animator, helps seeing how y'all set it up to be able to use it yourself is very valuable. So in a lot of systems, the like it's there's a common pattern that I've noticed when working on trying to build automatic systems like automated pipelines and stuff like that, where just gonna shut this down. Wait, I guess I can still be there. Uh, Often the first step and the most important step when building an automatic pipeline is do whatever it is that you were doing manually. Like before you try to like zip it through there, like hey, it pops out the other end perfect every time. Make sure that you can do the thing you're trying to automate by hand before you try to do it automatically. And I think that was ultimately like the Achilles heel of like my earlier efforts of trying to like make this stuff out of Blender, which is that like I didn't really know how to do it manually because I'm just like, you know, chugging along. And so, you know, I know enough now and I know enough about like coding, like Blender Python stuff, that I've got a pretty good sense of like what the right solution would look like. I just haven't had a chance to implement it. So the easiest way to push that along is to kind of just like keep working on the manual effort solutions of like, oh yeah, here's what your output is, and then here's the series of steps I had to do to make it usable, and then sharing that progress in the server somewhere. Like we you know, we see it, we notice it, and we sort of write it down, because it's like, you know, that information is very valuable because it's coming from sort of a different layer, a different area of expertise, and so just being able to see what you are like what is the output that you are shaping? Like, okay, now I can use it. Like when you're like da 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 da, now I can work. That's the things that I want to know. Like the place where you look at it and you're like, that's where this is. I did all this manual effort so I can get the data into this configuration. That's helpful because then I can look at that configuration and say, okay, is how can we sort of automatically output something that has these desirable characteristics? Because yeah, it's like, it's all sorts of stuff. Like the first iteration, which I think the current iteration too, is like I didn't know about bone roll as a thing. I didn't know how constraints work, so it's just like, you know, doing what I can. And what I've also found that like the best way to learn a new field, a new specialty, a new area is to just go be wrong in front of experts. Like it's a really good way to learn. It's like, hey, here's this. Hey, hi, specialists and experts. I did my best, and I produced a janky version of the thing that you know everything about. And then oftentimes when you do that, the experts are like, "Oh, that's fucked up, but you're close, and here's the things you got wrong." So that process is happening actively in the server, where uh, animator folks sort of shaping my janky output into something that's sort of more functional, more usable, is just incredibly valuable to us. And I wish I had more time to focus on it. I wish I had had a $10 million to hire a team of people. But in the meantime, just please be patient. um, yeah. Okay. I'm tired, and so in nothing, no aspect of my technology stack is working. Look at this is working. So, I did want to check one last thing before I sign off. Yeah. Okay, so actually, look at these. Yeah, we are not properly killing our processes in the background. There shouldn't be 8 of these. But yeah. Okay. So yeah, so this is now filling much slower. Yeah. Okay, so at least with one camera, it is much slower, but that's fine. Da 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 da. Figure might as well let that go through. How many frames is that? 1,000 frames? 1,000 boring frames? Hmm. Where are we at? We're at this. How are we doing down here? TensorFlow. 12 frames per second. But in case someone was wondering, I'm currently just because I did record a single camera. I'm just gonna go ahead and let it pop, like produce the actual video, even though it's gonna be a boring video because I was just sitting there, um, just for funsies. Because I feel like I should at least produce one viable recording. How's everybody else doing? How's life? Oh, that's funny. Gigantic made breaking changes. Yeah, we got to pin all our stuff. We have been burned enough times by. We've been burned like twice in one day by unpinned dependencies. So we should just go ahead and pin those, and we'll get there. Blah. All right, and then that's gonna pop out there, and that's gonna spit out some blah 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 Blender stuff, saving things out, and that's gonna produce a nice little flat Stanley of data. How we doing? Da da da. Look at me go. So it's gonna be this is a very boring low quality recording because it's guessing at my lower body, but it can only see my shoulders and head right now. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's not bad. And because it's single camera, it's just flat because we're not trying to play that game that a lot of the tech world is playing of like, let's try to get 3D from 2D because it's just bad data when you do that. Oh, it skipped. Did that skip? Oh no, I just moved fast. Yeah, it would be. So yeah. It does a pretty good job, and it's the single camera mode is nice because it is quick and easy, and it doesn't give you 3D, but like I feel like this could be used for 2D animation, um, and just kind of like you basically can decide the size of your character by moving like forward and away because that's how it works. But yeah, um, at some point, someday, we will also like develop like the 2D animation components of this because single camera to a 2D track is easy. And it'd be fun if there was some pipeline that would dump this data into like the like whatever the hell is going on in this 2D viewport, which I've never fully understood what that's going on there. 2D, 2D, 2D. Oh yeah, look at that. There you go. It's already in there. Get over there. All right. Hmm. Someday, someday, someday. Okay. I am out. Uh, yeah, this has been fun. I like streaming. I want to do more streaming, and I want to do it more regularly. There's just kind of it's like so many things. It's like the barrier is on the start. And it's like once it's started and running, I usually like it's chill and relaxing. And I have a good time. It's just like getting into a headspace where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna push the button and like stream, to, you know, to the world. It's a headspace, and it's just like it can be hard to like find that emotional energy. While I'm also like doing all the other things I have to do for my job, like running a lab, teaching a class, and just like whatever, and like also like doing the development and stuff like that. It's strange because like it's not so much like the time that it takes; it's like the emotional energy that it takes just to stream. But I think that I've always kind of had the feeling that if I was able to like make a regular thing of it and like be more consistent with it, that it would become more consistent. It's just like things in my life tend to fill up and also like tend to change on pretty short time scales. So it's hard to maintain any very rigid schedules. But I am planning. So I'm gonna be traveling through a lot of July. So intermittent stuff here and there might happen. But my plan is basically to set up some kind of regular public facing stream chat voice hang um, on a like weekly or bi-weekly basis, and you can take that bi-weekly in either direction, which is kind of funny. um, just because I know that there's so many people like Caleb was asking me, he's like, hey, where do my cameras, like people like who have like bugs, or people like, hey, what's the deal, like what's the status of this thing. um, and I think it's just like it would be relatively easy. I won't say easy, nothing's easy, but like I know that if I was able to just like make myself available to answer questions on a fairly regular basis, it would unstick a lot of people, and I want to do that. Um, so yes, Java, I will be. The thing is the thing. So if I were to be more consistent, it would be easier to be consistent because often like the hard part of habits is starting them, and the hard parts of schedules is starting them. Um, I'm also gonna ask. I'll ask like Philip and Aaron and whatnot to like like Philip, you're listening. If you just poke me to like do some kind of a stream or just go hang out in a voice channel and like do office hours in the server, just ask me if I'm gonna do it. Like sort of like gently encourage me to do it, and I will be much more likely to do it. Um, I know that might feel like an overstep because I am busy and you're asking me to do stuff, which I tend to be resistant to. Um, but it actually would be very helpful for like somebody else in the circle to just ask. Like the reason why I'm streaming now is because Michael made an offhand comment yesterday of like it's been a while since I stream. I'm like, you're right, it is. Uh, it's easier to get motivated when someone asks you to do something. If you have to pull the motivation out of your own hat independently, you're only ever going to do it when the stars align. Um, but you know, we are making progress. The software is getting better over time, and nothing's it's not perfect. It's not nothing will ever be perfect. But the trajectory is good, and we're in a place now that I you know couldn't have conceived of 2 years ago. Uh, so super stoked about that. And so yeah, we just keep moving forward. We keep working on stuff. Another question that we get quite frequently is like, how can I help? In terms of the development and stuff like that. But in terms of the project as a whole, uh, literally any form of engagement and interaction helps. Um, Being in the server, answering questions, talking to people is super helpful. Use the software for your own purposes. Report bugs. You know, make, I guess, feature requests or something like that. I need to start doing like polls and stuff like that to sort of get a sense of like feature prioritization, um, and things like that. But we'll get there. And then in terms of like people who want to help with the code, like like the actual open source component of this, um, we're pretty close. I think we're theoretically at a point now where we can start. Where like the code on the back end has been cleaned up enough that that other people can work on it, and like Philip and Aaron et al have been like contributing to it for a little while now, which was an important test because for a while it was just so complicated and messy that like it wasn't efficient to like ask other people to come in and work on it because like it would just take too long like to help like it was such a mess that it's like hard for other people to come in. But now that we've got things cleaned up, it's not perfect by any means, but it's cleaned up enough that like people can work on small components of it, and it's unlikely to break things outside of the area that they've been working on. um so now we are yeah, do you want to eat my spaghetti? Yeah, we are approaching ravioli status. We're it's still not, we have not fully despaghettified our code, but we have we are we're approaching ravioli, which is all you can ever hope for. Um, but kind of in the same space of like wanting to stream more, wanting to do more stuff. Like I talked with Philip about like hosting sort of like 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 in my lab server, which is sort of like related to like my professor life. We meet and talk about free mocap development, um, and kind of just like to figure out that workflow and that sort of like rhythm. And we were just talking about like having one of those a week or one of those every 2 weeks if that feels too much, like just like in the free mocap server. Um, Sort of with the intention not necessarily of saying like, hey, come and work on this thing, but just by doing that in public and inviting people from the community to come in and just like watch, hang out, like, people who have less experience but want to help. There might be like small projects that are sort of like good first issues kind of stuff of people who have more experience. Might be able to give us advice about like, oh yeah, this is how you set up your logging to like avoid these problems. um who knows what will come out of it, but it is challenging to work in public, but it is rewarding as well, so one must do stuff. Okay, 7 o'clock on a Friday. Call it good. Okay, I'm gonna go. Thank you for them of y'all been watching and for being a part of this project and contributing and using this thing and just being supportive. Just means the world. Really appreciate it. And onward and upward, we're on a good trajectory, and we're gonna get this thing to a really cool place, and looking forward to doing it with you guys. So, oh wait, this is I almost pushed stop recording. It's like that's not gonna help anything. It's over here. But yeah, I'm gonna be good. I'm out. Thank you, everybody.